Okay, so my father installed a dehumidifier inside of his RV. After we discussed it, we talked about stuff that gets inside of them and can ruin things, especially humidity, mold, moisture, all that kind of stuff. So he put one in and he wired it to a small little inverter, which is then wired to his battery. And we're going to see exactly how much current it's pulling. So he has two 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate batteries that he added. So he has 200 amp hours worth of power. He has a solar, the smart solar charge controller from Victron that he has powering him from the solar panels. And then he also has a lithium ready converter that charges these batteries. So he's good to go here. What he ran, and he hardwired it in, is this little power inverter. It's not pure sine wave, but I don't think it needs to be. It is 400 watts. Has two little 120 outlets here, plus a USB and a USB-C, it looks like. And he is powering the small little inverter. So we're going to see how much power it's actually pulling, because that'll let us know mathematically how long those batteries are going to last if he keeps this in storage, unpowered storage, and he wants to let this thing run. This is a lot larger than the one that we've put in before. Quite a bit larger. This is actually one that's probably meant for a larger bedroom. But I got this in front of me. Let's check it out. Hang tight. I'll be right back. Alright, so he's going to unplug that. We're going to plug this in, and this should give us a pretty good idea of the power consumption of this. Okay, so you have to turn it on every time. So right now we are pulling 49, right at 48 to 49 watts, actually right at 49 watts. You can see the amps. It's pulling about half an amp right now. So he should have a pretty dang good amount of time running this off of a couple batteries. But the goal ultimately is that the solar, which we don't have a lot of sun outside right now, but once it starts getting sunnier, that the solar, which is you have what, 100 watt or 200 watt panels? 200 watt panels. So he has 200 watts worth of power coming into it, which should absolutely offset the 50 watts that this is pulling, assuming you're going to have really good sunlight. But at some point, the batteries could be depleted overnight. Hopefully they won't, but they might be depleted overnight, because this itself is also going to cause a parasitic draw off of the battery. So we can't specifically see using this how much power this is pulling off. And in my previous investigations, it looks like these usually pull about half an amp when they're standing by. He's got the app pulled up on his phone, shows that it's pulling 93 watts, or sorry, this is the power going in. So he's getting about 93 watts going in on the two solar panels that he has. Current coming off of the battery. Well, he doesn't have a shunt, so he's not going to be able to tell exactly what's coming outside of the battery. But as it stands right now, it's pulling in more power to the batteries than this is using, and probably this. This is probably pulling about a quarter to a half an amp just being plugged in and being used. And of course, right now, this is going to be pulling a little bit as well. But pretty cheap, pretty affordable. Did you just recently get this? Okay, so my one suggestion to you is that if your battery dies and this shuts off, and the sun kicks on, or the sun comes out the next day, and it starts providing power to your panels, which will then provide power to your batteries, which should then kick this back on. This is not going to turn on by itself because of the way you have to turn this one on. You probably want one with an on-off switch. That way you can just keep it on all the time, and it will just come back on when your batteries start getting some more power. But it's definitely a good step, and it will definitely keep things like your cabinets and countertops from delaminating. It can definitely help, at least. It's a preventative step, but you're probably going to be really surprised how much water you actually collect. But I would definitely recommend going to one that has an actual physical on-off button on it, because that'll probably just perform a little bit better for you whenever sunlight gets back to your panels and starts recharging your battery. But yeah, super cool, very, very inexpensive. What'd you pay for this? About 50, 60 bucks?
Yeah, around that.
Okay.
This was only like 35.
About 35 for that, and it doesn't need to be pure sine wave for this. It probably wouldn't hurt to be a pure sine wave, but you're going to pay about twice the cost to do that.
One of the reasons that I chose that dehumidifier is because the smaller ones, a lot of them don't come with a drain hose.
That is true.
And if it fills up with water, it'll shut off by itself. So this one came with the drain hose, so as you can see on the container, when it gets to a certain level, it'll start draining into the sink, into the gray tank.
Okay, the secret for a lot of people, including myself for this, is just to set your dehumidifier in the sink and drill a small hole in the plastic right there just so it continuously drains. But yeah, no, that's a good perk to have that in there. And this would probably be great to take with you when you're camping because it's going to have better capacity and it's going to be better for that type of scenario. But if you're not going to be out at your RV all the time to possibly check to see if you've lost power and if that turns back on, then a smaller one with a little on-off switch might work better for you. Very cool though, very simple. Has it wired straight to the battery, right?
Yep.
So
just clipped onto the battery terminals.
There we go. Very low cost. And again, this is one way that you can maintain your batteries. And he only has 200 watts worth of solar, which is not a huge solar build. And something that you should be able to manage if you're trying to put a little bit of cost towards making your RV last a little longer in storage. Thank you. Okay, so just so you all know that the process of keeping rodents out of your vehicle or anything else is always an ongoing process. I've seen zero signs or indications that the rat has gotten or any rat has gotten back into my truck. But what I attempted to do today was to lift this piece off to see if there was any route for anything that got behind here to get into the truck. And I found a couple areas, but I can't get this completely off because even after you move the windshield wiper arms, they're super easy to remove. There's a spring-loaded clip. There's a huge retainer nut that's been pressed on that you can't slide this over unless you tear that up, and I don't want to do that. So my best bet is just to constantly figure out if there are ways to prevent a rat from getting through this area and getting into that space. So what I'm doing now, as most of you know, there's a bunch of stainless steel mesh that I've put back here. Still there, I'm not messing with that, but I've cut a little piece of that real heavy-duty stainless steel material that will be put right here. I'm only going to use one stainless steel screw to secure it in place, but I'm essentially putting it right here to block that entire area off in addition to the mesh. I think it's just, you know, a safety thing that I could do. And this right here, there's nothing super vital on the other side, so I can drill straight through that without worrying about hitting anything important. So again, I'm just going to take one screw, I'm going to put it in with a washer, and it will simply hold that piece right there or a little further back just to prevent anything from getting through there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to seal this area up right here. I'm going to use another piece of the mesh to insert into this space right here, and that should give me the ability to prevent anything from getting inside of here and nesting in here, because there's no signs that anything's been in here, and I want to keep it that way. Plus, this is an area that you should never really have to reach into, and the spacing of the holes in the mesh should be perfectly fine to allow airflow to continue through, no problem at all. So that's going to be my next little addition after I secure that in place. Okay, so I'm pretty impressed with how this turned out. Check it out. Fits perfectly in here. There's actually even a little groove right here, and I'm not even too worried if little holes end up punching through, because quite frankly they're not going to hurt anything. That said, I mean, that is perfect, and the biggest gap here is maybe 1/2 inch, and I really doubt anything's going to get through there, especially when you're talking about the larger rats that tend to get into vehicles. Now, as far as protecting everything else up here, you know, some of the stuff is just going to have to stay exposed. There's not really a heck of a lot I can do except use these peppermint packets and stuff to try to keep them away, spray the engine compartment occasionally. That's just one of the challenges you deal with when you have an engine that's going to be exposed to an area that rodents can get into. But we're going to continue on looking around to see if there's any other areas that we can secure, but that's going to work out really well. And again, there's no reason why that needs to remain open anyways. It's not as if you need to reach in there or you need to access this to actually take the filter out. That's done from back here. But what do you guys think? Drop a comment below. This stuff works super great, very sharp, very thick, and I don't think there's really any rat that could chew through that. But so far, we have some little ultrasonic stuff that makes noise. We have another one on the other side over here. And again, I haven't had any additional rats besides that one that got in that we caught. We sealed everything up. I now have it extra sealed right here. That's not going to move or go anywhere. And I hope that what we've done at least is going to deter or prevent any additional critters from getting inside of the truck. That's the big one, or into the air box right here, which is also a very common place for rats to build their nests. Anyways, guys, sure hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again real soon.